Welcome to the QSM podcast, where we inspire you to unplug from social media and reconnect with the real world around you. Here are your hosts, partners and friends, investigators, Elias, Lou, Larry, and George.
In today's episode, we're diving deep into the world of quitting social media, how it can improve your mental health, boost your productivity, and allow you to connect with the world around you in a more meaningful way.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Who's that guy? So we'll go around and introduce ourselves. Obviously, it's the first time you guys hear our voice. I am Eli. I am an investigator. Go ahead, Uncle Lou.
Yeah, man, I go by Uncle Lou, 27, and I've been an investigator for 5 years.
Okay.
Larry, investigator as well, 7 years on. Just a seeker of truth.
Yes, sir.
George, I'm a writer. I'm 37 years old. I'm originally from California, and now I reside in the great state of Florida. And I'm really interested in this topic, man. So, yeah.
This is going to be a great episode.
It's great.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about quitting social media. Something that I think for a lot of people, it's almost like an impossible task. Or they don't even think about it, really. They're just drones, kind of using their phones, and they don't really understand that this is even a possibility. Quitting that social media.
I agree. And tell us a little bit about your own usage.
Well, I want to say I was a heavy social media user, like everybody else. And I think why I became passionate about this the most, especially with friends and family around me, is how you can really lose a grip on your family, right? So you're on social media every day. You're not talking to your wife as much. You're on social media. You don't really know what's going on in your kid's school. Your kids are on social media. They don't know anything other than that either. It just kind of infects your household. And just the thought of how a simple application can kind of sedate you in that way where you lose reality, right, and lose your family like that. It's just something that really kind of want to help people overcome that. So, yeah, when I saw myself ignoring those around me, I was like, yeah, that's just probably something I should stop doing. There are better things to do.
Right. I mean, I haven't used social media in a couple of years. I think it depends on what you define as social media. I mean, I'm still on YouTube, Reddit. I was still using it for a while. But in terms of like traditional like Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, I've been off of that for a couple of years. I was never really super heavy into it, but obviously I did dabble in social media. And I mean, yeah, like touching back to what you said, what you realize is when you get off of it is you have a lot more free time. You're off the phone for an extended, periods of time.
All right.
And it's not something that you miss once you get off of.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with what you guys are saying. I used to just Facebook, Instagram for a while, and then I had to cut it off because I noticed it was affecting my relationships with my chick. I wasn't able to, I lost kind of my way with her.
Yeah.
And then, here we are, quitting social media.
Yeah, did anybody here have MySpace?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's probably the first thing, right? At least for us. MySpace.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff before that they were experimenting with, like Friendster and stuff like that, but MySpace was like the big social media that everybody kind of got on.
Right.
And at the time, I think it was called social networking. The term social media didn't really exist until about Facebook and Instagram kind of took over. But I've been off social media for a couple of years, and, I agree with Uncle Lou. It definitely makes your life a lot better. But the hardest part is being able to recognize that you may have an addiction to social media, to being on the phone constantly.
Right.
And I think, we've discussed this before. If you go out in public and if you see somebody, if you go to a restaurant and you look at a table and there's a family sitting there and every single person is on their phone, especially kids, it certainly says that there's a problem.
Right.
Right. Because I don't think anybody wants to do that on purpose. Nobody wants to ignore their family at a dinner on purpose. It's just that there is a psychological problem, which is kind of like what, this whole thing is about.
Yeah, and I think like we're using the word addiction. People are probably listening like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a crackhead. Like I'm not
Right.
I'm not here homeless
Right.
under a bridge on social media. But it's a different type of addiction, right? It's like a more modern addiction, and it could even be more dangerous because you know, like let's say if you're addicted to drugs, you have to meet up with some dealer and you need money and stuff like that. As opposed to social media, it's free. It's on your phone. Everybody has access to it. So it's not like a traditional, addiction.
Addiction. Yeah. It's like okay. So you have a different addiction to drugs, alcohol, anything like that, cigarettes even, and there's almost a stigma, right? You will have that one alcoholic in the family, Jerry, and like he's the dude who's struggling keeping a job, and he's gotten involved in this and that, and whether it be drugs, alcohol, anything else. But when everybody in your house has the same addiction, it's all of a sudden just not that big a deal anymore.
Right.
Now all of a sudden we're all in the same, connected matrix.
Correct.
And we're not addicts, right? We don't have that label. But just like even drunk driving, right? Addiction to alcohol, the way you drive and how dangerous that is. They've done studies where you actually drive worse on your phone, texting, connected and plugged into that phone than under the influence of alcohol.
Right.
So there are so many comparisons between, barbiturates and other things and the use of social media and how bad it is for you. But like I said, I think it's just people haven't kind of put two and two together. Like it is a real addiction you can have. And the effects it has on your body, mind, soul, family, and everything can be just as dangerous.
Right. Yeah, because if you're like a little tipsy and you're driving, you're like, okay, I need to really focus. But if you're on Instagram, you don't think you're doing anything wrong. You're just sort of checking the new stories, what's up, and then next thing you know, you're rear-ending the guy in front of you.
Right.
And you're getting a ticket.
Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah, it's definitely just going on, kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying. It's definitely been normalized. Correct. As if you're not on it, then there's something different about you, which can be a good thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not on it, people are like, oh, give me your IG, give me your Instagram so I can reconnect with you or talk to you. Or, when I was growing up, if you wanted to talk to a girl, you had to ask for her phone number. Now it's like kids are not communicating that way. Even some adults are not even communicating that way anymore.
So it's Instagram.
They're asking for their IG or their Instagram and things of that nature so they can DM each other. So definitely there's been a huge shift in the way that we communicate. And we know there's a lot of research coming out that is showing that this is not the way that we were meant to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't supposed to be staring at a screen all day and not having that real human interaction with one another. So there's a huge problem, and hopefully this podcast can help some people at least, have some introspection into their own life and how they are using social media, and maybe they just consider taking some time off of it or quitting altogether, like most of us have done. Right.
Yeah. The whole thing, cold turkey, right? Some people say, yeah, I can quit cold turkey, and that's fine. Other people are like, there's no way, right? There's going to be some sort of withdrawals. But it's interesting to see as people start exploring this possibility, right? Quitting social media, what that withdrawal looks like, what that cold turkey is. We're talking about days at a time. We're talking about delete that app and never open it again, and how your life changes. Do you physically feel now hurt? Something about you is now, are you going to start having cold shakes because you're not clicking likes or seeing who likes your stuff, or damn, I actually have to text somebody or call somebody now, or have conversations with people, have them over, not just, liking photos and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see as more people kind of jump on this bandwagon and improve their lives, what that cycle is, right? How that transition into escaping, that addiction is.
And you might be listening in and going, I just like social media. I don't have an addiction. And I think a good test would be to uninstall the apps on your phone and see how you react. Can you go a week? Can you go 2, 3, 4 weeks without it? And you're going to start opening your phone and going, well, what do I do now? Right? There's a setting on your phone where you can go in and see your screen time. Is that something that you're looking normally? Like, what are you spending your time on?
I think a lot of people will be surprised by that freaking number, man.
Yeah. There was a point where I was using my phone 8-9 hours a day. It's like, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not making any money of it, and it's hurting you. But you'll do it for 8 hours happily, and you'll do it every single day. It's crazy.
And then, you still say, well, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go see my mom today.
That's a good point.
Right? And it's like, well, if you winded that down to an hour or two a day, so much time just frees up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the thing is, why are people using social media or using their phones that much to begin with, right? Is it because they're aware or because they're not aware? And it's probably because they're not aware. You're in that matrix,
Right.
you know, you're in that rabbit hole and you're just kind of doom scrolling all day long, looking at content that's been created and tailored to make you want to interact with it all day long. And we know that most of the material that you're seeing is tailored through an algorithm, right? Specifically for you.
Right.
So what you see on your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed or whatever social media feed is tailored specifically to you. So what you look at and what I look at, it's completely different.
Right. It's only going to get better at keeping you there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
The more information you give it, the more likes you give it, the longer you stay on a video, all of that is being calculated. Even if you're not touching anything, just letting the video play for a certain amount of time.
Actually finishing the video.
Finishing
right.
the video, that's being recorded.
Right.
And a computer, right? These AI computers that are coming out that we know, we've been hearing about ChatGPT and stuff like that. They're calculating all this information and showing you these videos, which most of them are polarizing and most of them are, engineered to make you to evoke an emotional response from you. And it's usually not happiness, right?
Yeah.
It's usually like, if I can make you angry or upset
Or depressed.
Yeah.
I can make you stay longer or interact with the content longer.
Yeah, that's a good point because I don't think many people. Well, two things. I don't think many people. Let's say they find out that they have been using it for 8 hours, or they walk around with that as a badge. It's like, yeah, I used it for 8 hours, and they're happy about that.
Right.
Normally, if they find that piece of information out, they're like, "What am I doing with myself?
Yeah.
What am I doing with my day?" So people aren't aware of that. It's not like they are understanding. I'm on it 6+ hours a day, and they're happy with it, and they planned on doing that. And then, as far as what they're gonna do, what's the alternate, right? What are they gonna do with that time? Nobody knows. Because we're used to now, we're programmed that we're feeding ourselves this information, and that's part of our day. The routine is, I need to sit here and consume this. I need to see this. I need to listen to this. And the way we even perceive the data or perceive the information, you look at the thing with the gym, like Larry mentioned about the depression. Yeah. Not many people see that video from the gym or something else and put the phone down and go work out. They'll look at that video from the gym, compare themselves to it,
Correct.
beat themselves up that they don't look that way, but never actually put it down, pack their gym bag, and go to the fucking gym. It doesn't happen.
Right.
They stop there, the next scroll, and then get depressed about something else. They don't have that car. They don't have that house. They don't have that business, and so on and so forth, but never actually, it's not something that's a tool that's going to change your life. Watch this video, click on this, and if you keep doing it long enough, you're going to be successful. It's almost certainly to keep you in this hole, in this addiction,
right?
But never really making anything out of it.
Yeah,
that's something I've noticed as well.
Yeah,
and to touch back on your point that you get emotionally involved in these topics. It's not only social media. I mean, a lot of people watch the news in the morning. If you're watching the news, we were talking about this off the air.
Right.
You usually don't listen to positive news. This cat was saved from a tree. No, you're listening to homicides and this cop killed this race or whatever. And it incites a certain response.
And then you share it through Instagram.
And then you share
it. Everybody now has the same mindset. Everybody thinks the same. And we're all kind of consuming the same shit.
Nobody thinks for themselves.
Right.
You're having something feed you information, and then you're out here just absorbing it and believing it to be true instead of searching yourself for what's the truth out there.
Right.
Like the whole fact checker things that came out a lot, like with COVID, the fact checkers and referencing the CDC and stuff. But not a lot that happens with that kind of news. It's just put out there. People have, for whatever reason, over time, just assumed that everything on Instagram is fact. This is solid news, solid reporting, solid journalism.
Right.
And they share this. And it spreads like wildfire. And by the time you get to work after your long drive, these are the facts. This is what I learned today. This happened. And you're riled up about that topic. And you have no idea if it actually happened.
Correct.
The amount of bodies is off. The victims are off. Everything's off. But that is what you just fooled yourself to believe for hours now. And you're going to share that all day long.
You share that to your family. And then they take it as fact because you're telling them, something that you saw.
You gave it validity because, hey, that's Uncle Lou. He must know what he's talking about. And he shared it with me. So this is
He saw it at a post.
Yeah.
Right. So now everybody's outraged.
Yeah.
And you actually click on the link. You go, oh, wait, no.
Yeah, let me read the news article. That's not it.
Take a look at it.
Yeah, it's almost like the joke's on us.
Right.
Right. I mean, you're getting all these things that are just not factual. And it's because of the nature of social media, right? It's designed in a way that it wants you to produce content for it. It wants you to make videos. It wants you to share news. It wants you to retweet things. So it's created in a way that there's a lot of user input. So again, not to state the obvious, but none of this is verified. It's just being published by somebody in their basement who says, let's see how far this goes. The celebrity's dead. John Travolta died. And everybody's like, it's trending.
Yeah,
it was like he died.
3,000 RIPs, and the dude's alive.
And the guy's, in the Bahamas on a private jet,
living his best life. Yeah, took off his own airport, but everybody's RIP.
He's dead.
And it sounds kind of funny, sounds kind of comical, but it's definitely a lot darker than than what it seems. There's a lot of dark stuff that's out there on the internet, on social media, and we're just consuming all this stuff all day long. So it can't be good for you. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that if we were able to compile the positives and negatives, the negatives would outweigh the positives. And I don't think it's even a worthy risk to take.
Right.
So any step to getting away from it is, I think, the right way to go.
Right. And have you guys ever met somebody who's been like, "Hey, give me your Instagram," and then you're like, "No, I don't have an Instagram." Yeah. What kind of reactions have you gotten by?
I think Larry had a recent.
I was at a bar with one of my buddies, and he was trying to hit on the bartender the whole night. He was magging at her, and I'm just minding my own business, enjoying my beer, and then he asks her for her phone, and then she's like, "Oh, here's my IG," and then she asked me, "Do you have an IG?" I'm like, "No, I don't have anything." She goes, "Oh, that's impressive. I like that. You're the one guy here that actually doesn't have social media." So.
Right.
It's one of those where it's a rarity for a guy not to have social media.
Different all of a sudden.
I became different all of a sudden.
Right.
And then all my friend did throughout the night didn't mean anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's even a conversation piece now. If you're not on social media, it's like you're different.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's sad, really, but it's truth. It's the truth. Like, you should have more conversation pieces. You should be able to talk about something else.
Right.
But everything's about social media now. So the fact that you don't have it makes you unique.
Yeah,
right.
It's crazy.
We'll get into this obviously as we explore different episodes and expand, but how that affects dating, right? Because that woman asked for an IG or even the mail for a reason.
Yep.
They have they don't have to waste time having any conversation with you, exploring who you are as a person. Because they go onto your profile, you accept them if it's not already public. They know how you dress. If you have family posts, where you go, do you have
your
money,
hobbies,
your hobby, everything. So why would I even give you the time of day when I can do my own background on this illusionary world that you supposedly live, right? It's very different than just a text message, right? Here's my phone number, this is who I am, and every text message is a building block on us getting to know each other for who we really are. But now you became a rarity, right? That's just something that's not normal anymore. You tell a girl, "I don't have one," and she's like, "Shit, I have to get to know this guy.
Yeah, I have to give him my number.
I have to actually talk to him.
I should have to give him my number.
I just want to know if you drive a BMW.
Yeah,
Damn, I really have to invest time
net worth, bro.
As a normal person and have a good conversation with this guy. Shit.
So he becomes like an enigma.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. But also, if he did have social media and she was on there, she'd know a lot about him, but most of it would probably be fake.
Right. So he can manipulate that too. Like, let's say
we know people do this.
Right. Oh, 100%. Yeah. So it's either negative. If you're not good about your social media, then it can be negative, right? Because then you're gonna lose that shot. Or if you're a manipulator, you're gonna take advantage of that people are just eating that up. You'll just sit there and copyright 1,000 images of cars, Lambos, or whatever, and you're gonna get that date. Now, a month down the line, when she realizes you live in an efficiency in some small town city, right? Now that's gonna come crashing down on you. But whatever, you got that girl,
right? I mean, and a lot of people are not thinking about a month down the line.
Right?
They're thinking about that first day and trying to get it in with them or whatever.
Right?
They're not really thinking long term, and that's the type of society that we're in now.
It's sad.
That's a perfect point. That's the society we are in now. Everything has an expiration date. Longevity is a thing of the past, I think. Hearing people have conversations about long-term relationships, lifelong marriages, lifelong friendships, like that, I think is a thing of the past. Everything is the now, the shiny, the new.
Right.
People have a really hard time with that now. With anything being permanent in their lives, maybe it's because nothing is permanent on their screens, right? Everything you're doing is just scrolling. A new topic, a new picture, a new color, a new sound. But yeah, that's a good point. People just don't see that anymore. They're not interested in it anymore.
Right. It could be also that people's attention spans are shortening up. So they're just thinking here and now, and they want a quick fix and they want a fast solution. They're not used to thinking long term anymore. So, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with you, George, 100%. I mean, when you have the, I mean, to parents listening, when you give the phone to your child, you guys don't know the damage that you're doing to that actual child. I mean, you're looking at it and you're just, yeah, okay, he's looking at the phone, he's doing his thing, but because he's not, quote unquote, bothering you, right? He's letting you do what you got to do.
The pacifier.
Correct. But at the same time, you have to pay attention to your child. You have to be a mother. You have to be a father. It's very tempting for you to leave the phone on for him, but you're actually creating a lot of issues in the future, in the long term. Like his attention span, you already affected him. It's been scientifically proven. I know there's been case studies that it actually causes some sort of change in your brain or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
don't quote me on it, but
reference those things, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to make you aware, or at least the parents listening in, that maybe you want to limit that or take it off altogether.
Yeah, and you'd actually be surprised. Like even a 7 or 8 year old, you think that you're monitoring their phone and you know what they're doing, but in that 20 minutes that it took you to make a meal, she might have just made 5 TikToks. Right. Like you don't really know what they're looking into. Excuse me. Also, if they have that ability, I know there's like tablets or phones that are only for kids, right? But if you're giving them all the access in the world of them to, any word that they could think, any curiosity that they have, instead of asking you like, hey, what does this mean? They could just go on Google and type it in. No. And they can be, scarred for life, right?
Right. They're going to get information that they're not ready to receive, right? So this happens a lot, again, with parents like Larry was mentioning. I think it's also the old saying, but reimagine, right? Teach them how to fish. Well, now that person doesn't have to really think of how to get that answer, I think like we're here in the neighborhood and we have, let's say I'm in the neighborhood, I need a tool. I need a saw. I need whatever. What am I going to do? I'm going to come out of my house, talk to my neighbor, have that interaction, borrow that tool. Maybe that came out of a new conversation. You can teach me how to use it.
Right.
You just created this whole organic exchange. You stimulated yourself. You learned something new. That's not what social media is about. Social media is, like George said, the quick fix. I'm getting that quick response. But that journey of learning is gone now. I got the response. I didn't get any of those. Any of those steps were completely eliminated for me. So it feels good at the time. But what did I really do for my own mindset, my own brain development, or anything else? Completely gone. And like you mentioned, kids getting that information at an age that they're not ready to understand what that means.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's very different when you can come up with dad or mom. Mom, what's a boob? And mom says, well, sweetie, it's actually breast, and this is what they do. And you have that exchange with that parent. You have that image of, wow, I just got that conversation from mom. They'll type boob on Google.
And they see,
and it'll get 10,000 links of people twerking and links to Instagram and follow this OnlyFans and
here's more F girls for you.
What is this? Right. And then that's where the disconnect with the parent happens, because they're not going to go to the parent and be like, Mom, look what happened to my phone. They'll be like, oh shit, what is this?
I'm gonna keep looking.
I'm gonna
go inside
because
that
kids are curious,
rabbit hole,
and you just lost your kid there.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you're trying to teach them birds and the bees at 15. They're like, Mom, what are you talking about? I'm on my 100th pack of freaking
having sex, Mom.
What are you talking about?
I've been having sex, Mom.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, right? Because I'm the youngest one here, but even when I was 7 or 8 years old, I didn't have that unlimited access on my phone, right? You had to maybe you ask your buddy, and they're like, I don't know what that is, man. Ask somebody else. Ask an older kid, right? But now, like you said, you can just go in and anything you can think of is at your fingertips.
It's completely limitless.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about TikTok? Because it's been on the news recently. What are your thoughts on TikTok? And I know there's been information about how TikTok is different in China as opposed to how it is in the United States. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think one of the main things is exploring why that is, right? Why does China, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the creator, right? That's where it all originated, right?
Yes. So
why do they feel that out of their creation, they need to limit their population's exposure, but then they're totally fine with us consuming as much as we want of it? I think that's one of the main questions, and why they made that decision. I don't know if you guys have that research or any idea what that is. Why they chose to limit the consumption by age or anything for their own people.
I don't know why, but I have some theories.
Right.
Let's hear them.
I have some theories. I think that China is a superpower in the world, and its biggest competition is the United States. So I think if they're curtailing the material that their kids and their population is viewing, it's only to empower their people to be productive and positive and happy and healthy.
Right.
And they're basically saying to the rest of the world, including the United States, good luck.
Right.
You know, and I think that's totally intentional, right? Because they're very smart people. We know that. And that's what's happening. And I think we have a clip of it where the average teenager in the United States wants to be an influencer, and the average teenager or kid in China wants to be an astronaut.
You guys want to play
That's
that?
a big discrepancy between the two things.
Right. You guys want to play that clip?
Sure, if you can find it.
If you could pull it up.
One sec. Okay, it says TikTok in China versus the United States.
Make their domestic version a spinach version of TikTok, while they ship the opium version to the rest of the world.
The version served to the West has kids hooked for hours at a time. The impact, Harris says, is predictable.
There's a survey of preteens in the US and China asking what is the most aspirational career that you want to have. And in the US, the number one was influencer.
Social media influencer.
And in China, the number one was astronaut. Again, you allow those two societies to play out for a few generations, I can tell you what your world is going to look like.
TikTok tells us it gives American users tools to limit screen time, but those tools are entirely voluntary.
And I think that's the biggest problem, right? Because I know of several people that use Instagram, and Instagram has some tools installed on it where you can limit your screen time.
Right.
And they're like, you know, today I'm only going to use Instagram for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And as soon as that notification comes up, the very first thing that the person does is that they hit, you know, bypass.
Snooze,
and
yeah.
snooze or stop, whatever the button is. And they just keep using it.
Right.
I think that the engineers of Instagram know that you're going to do that.
Yeah.
But now they can say, no, we have tools that we're putting out there to stop people from, you know, people who are addicted to the app.
Yeah, like we put a cap on that bottle, you know. It's up to
Right.
you. You said it to open it. Oh well, you know what I mean.
Exactly.
But we took care of that, you know.
You can only
Exactly.
drink an ounce.
Yeah.
And you're
This is your recommended daily consumption. That's what we have.
Right.
But nobody eats. They're like, you don't look at the back of a bottle of cookie or a bag of cookies. You're like, oh man, it says my serving says it's 4 cookies. I'm gonna just have 4.
right.
You know,
Right.
who does that?
Nobody has focus.
12 cookies.
It's not just thing.
And that's what's happening with TikTok. He's just they're kind of cleaning themselves, saying, "Hey, we have these tools installed, these family controls, and they know none of this works."
Right.
No kid is going to be like, "Oh yeah, my control came up. Let me."
You said it
let me
right there.
block
No
this."
kid. So if this was something where you as a parent, I'm like, you know what, TikTok is just popping, right? It's hip. I'm gonna let my kids do their thing, but I'm gonna limit. I'm gonna be smart. I'm a good parent and check all of these things. You're going to hand the phone to the kid. The kid knows more about that phone and TikTok than you will ever know.
Absolutely.
They're going to click everything, one of those things off. But that is a scenario where the parent actually wants to get involved. But 9 times out of 10, the kid has their own phone, downloaded their own TikTok, created their own usernames, their own accounts, and you didn't even know that they were doing that.
That's the thing.
They're never going to click those settings ever.
Right. My sister, she's 15 years old. My mom, we went through a phase where we're kind of still going through it, believe it or not, because she makes multiple accounts, different. Her name and then like a different 06581 code 6. And then my mom's like, hey, listen, can we like shut her down? And you can't.
Right.
She's always generating different accounts, always different.
Of course.
And it's, my mom is clueless when it comes to technology. I'm, you know, most parents are, you know, and I come in there and I try to do my best. And sometimes I still, like, obviously we got under control of it now, but it got to the point where, you know, it was out of hand. Every day will be a different account and I'm every day deleting them. And she's tech savvy.
Yeah. And that's a parent that, you know, if it's like a 55-year-old mom, maybe an immigrant you know, person who
Working
has
full
no
time.
idea, right? Imagine, I mean, even if you're a young parent, if you're 35 years old and you have a 10-year-old, you might not be as tech savvy as them because you're not on that thing all day. Even if you're like, no, I'm familiar with Instagram and stuff. Now they're on TikTok. Yeah. It's like, I don't even know how to maneuver TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, so even if you think you can handle it, they're probably more knowledgeable on that than you are.
Yeah, that's a good point as far as like age, right? So let's say it is an older parent where they just have no idea what that is, right? They're using their phones really to communicate with family
Correct.
and whatnot. Or you're in your 30s. But I think what happens a lot is that person in their 30s is probably on Instagram and TikTok. So they think they understand the way it works and they think they can communicate that with their kid better, but they may also be distracted themselves, not realize what their kids are doing with that phone to begin with.
Right.
So they're stuck in the same world that the kids are, you know?
Yeah.
They feel I'm in control because I'm an adult and I'm watching it and I know where those settings are, but you're distracted. You're not really looking at what the kid's looking at. So short of taking away that phone or giving them a dummy phone, which, you know, do exist to help kind of parents navigate this, where just communication is key, right? Are you safe? Are you okay? We're just seeing text like the sidekick and stuff like that. Just text, you know?
Flip phones.
Flip
Give 'em a
phones, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if the idea is for you to know kind of where your kid's at, that they're safe, they can chat with friends is one thing, but you know, it's not necessary to expose them, right, to that social media, because it's true. It doesn't really matter the age, whether it be because they don't understand it or because they're distracted by it. You're putting kids at risk.
Yeah, and that's something I recommend to all the parents listening in. If your child if you're losing control of your child, it's time you get one of those either minimalist phone or you just get a flip phone. Cut the cord, man. You know.
How do you think the kids are going to react when they've been used to being on a smartphone?
The kid's gonna go. He's gonna rage. He's gonna be the Hulk. But you got to do what you got to do. You got to be a parent. I feel like sometimes it's a little tough love.
It's like the monster we're making, right?
But we
giving
created
these
that.
kids, 9 years old. I've seen it 8 years old with smartphones, completely unmetered, unlimited access to the internet. They have their own apps. And, what are we creating? What's going to happen 10, 20 years when that kid grows up?
Yeah, you're taking away their reality, I think. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but that's all they know, right? Yeah. So it's not like you take a phone away from the 40-year-old. It's like, all right, well, I know what it was like being 20 and not having a phone. Yeah. You take a phone away from a kid, and they're like, that's all they know. Their real world was in that phone. You remove that, they don't know who they are.
Right.
It's crazy.
There's no identity built there. So that kid throws a tantrum and just is lost in the world.
Right, and it's not only just taking the phone away and just having them stare at the roof. It's what are you doing to replace that? That
Correct.
time consumption. So are you putting them in a sport? It has to be
Right,
something
that's
that
a
they
big one.
like.
Right,
That's a big one.
Yeah, like anything else, you can't just like take this away and expect that that's going to be your solution. No, some solution could be spend more time with your damn kid. Figure it out. Provide more valuable content for them that's not on their phone. Sports. Of any kind, learn the piano. Just like, I don't even know. People are playing piano on the iPad. You know what I mean? Like those things are just gone, I think. And what does that say for future generations? Because if your kids are becoming glow kids and iPad kids, and they have no sense of self other than that phone, what does that say for when they are adults? I think George kind of mentioned in the beginning, you could be the smoothest guy, the smoothest gal on that phone, right? You're communicating, the way you portray yourself on that phone is just so nice, so smooth. But you put that same person, kid or adult, in like a public setting to interact with other grown people, and I don't think you're going to have the same response. Right. Because the ability to kind of edit yourself and even portray yourself a certain way on social media compared to having like real life conversations, the person calling you, you're full of shit, right to your face, is very different, and it's humbling. But I think there's a lot of people that avoid that. Right? They'd rather be in their caves. They'd rather kind of still live that alternate universe than interact with people in real life, because it is different. You just can't edit yourself the same way, and gauge yourself. How many likes is this going to get? Is the lighting right? Am I going to put a filter on myself? No, dude, you have acne. That's just the way you look. Right.
You're kidding.
Own it, But now I'm going to post that photo and I'm going to put 3,000 filters on it, and I look fantastic. Yeah. And I'm happy here.
And the filters now are not the same as they were 10 years ago.
Oh, it's incredible,
like
bro.
A little bit of
they're scary,
a little
man.
better lighting.
Yeah,
it'll change your whole face.
Your whole
Those things
face.
are scary.
I saw a video of some girl like giving a good example of that, and this was the point of the video. Like, she wasn't the most attractive female, but with that filter on, she was a 10 out of 10. And she goes, "No, like, let me take the filter out. This is really me." And you go, "Wow."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that girl knows that.
Yeah.
And she's comparing herself to other people on Instagram or on whatever social media app. And that's where the feelings of sadness come in, and depression and all this stuff. It's like, no, you're supposed to have acne when you're a teenager. You're supposed to go through that stage.
Right.
But they don't want to do that because they're competing with all these beautiful women.
That is so true, man. When we're in high school, like, we're all seeing it. Like, we're in a class, we're all seeing it. Like, hey, we're all going through this together. Right. If your filters are better than mine, or if you're on IG and I'm not, like, you look good. Outside of that classroom, you look fantastic. You're gonna have more friends than I. But that is a valid point. Like, we all have to go through this experience together, right? As we're growing up and as our bodies are changing. But Instagram kind of just literally filters all of that out. And that's where all those other symptoms come in. And body dysmorphia. I mean, all these other stuff that kids are suffering with that are tenfold than what they were, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if you kind of correlate those two things together, the explosion of social media use and mental health issues, I think you're going to find some sort of correlation between the two, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, kids are not happier today than what they used to be. All the research shows that. Actually, I have an article here from the New York Times called "The Phone in the Room," and it says that teen mental health has deteriorated, especially for girls, since about 2008. The suicide rates for girls and boys began rising around that time. Feelings of loneliness and sadness began rising too. The amount of time teenagers spend socializing in person has declined, and so has sleep. So basically, kids are a lot, especially teenagers, are not as happy as they used to be. And the only thing that's changed, really, major thing in the last 15, 20 years has been the rise of smartphones and social media. So there's a definite relationship between the two. And anybody who just has a brain, who just looks around at the world, you can see it. You can see kids on their phone. They're looking at social media, which is, to me, it's propaganda all day long. You're seeing this movement, this photo, this video, that video, and it just wants to get your kid emotionally charged. So it's definitely a negative thing. And again, this is kind of like the beginning. 20 years is really not a long time if you compare, to how long we've been around. But we're going to see the fruit, of that tree in probably the next 20 years.
Yeah, the image of cigarettes and things like that. Like nowadays, no cigarette. People were smoking in restaurants, in your house.
Yeah.
It was totally normal. If you didn't smoke, you're like, weird. What's wrong with you? Do you not know how to smoke? Pussy, why are you coughing when you smoke? You know what I mean?
Why don't you smoke?
And now you see someone smoking, it's like, what are you doing? That's terrible for you. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see something like that as this develops, and kids and we're like, why is every single kid in America seeing a psych?
Yeah.
And not for just therapy because you kind of need it, want to work through some issues. Like, no, they need it or they'll kill themselves or they've already tried. So I think another 20 years we kind of wake people up where they're just going to be bashing their phones like, no, I'll shoot you a smoke signal because it's just not worth it. I'm going to put my family at risk at this point.
Yeah, I think the government's going to have to intervene because that's what they did with the tobacco industry. They had to come in and pass a lot of regulation before you would see smoking ads everywhere. They were on billboards. They were, on movies. They were just, every single person was a smoker.
Mainstream.
It was very, it was
that
mainstream.
was it. It was mainstream.
You had to be a smoker. You had to be.
Right.
And that's kind of like what's happened with social media. And the research shows that social media is more addicting than smoking. So think about that for a second. Smoking is, we know how addicting that is. Social media is more addicting than smoking.
It's more accessible.
More accessible. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Anybody could get on social media at any time.
Right.
And immediately their brain starts reacting to the platform, right?
Right.
It's that habit loop of dopamine release every time you see a video, every however many seconds.
Yeah.
And you're down that rabbit hole. So
yeah, you read the side of a cigarette box or open up, a simple search on cigarettes and, hey, it has carcinogens. It's probably not good for you. But you don't have that with social media.
No.
You don't have a simple, you're going to open up the app and part of that, intro, right? This is how the app's used. We're going to pull up a list of all these chemicals that are kind of formulating in your brain as you're using this content and what it does for you. You're never going to see that. No.
Right.
So it doesn't have the same effect on people of hey, this is bad for me. You just see, again, the pretty colors, pretty sounds. This is fantastic. It's good for me. I'm going to do it.
Right.
Until it's, you figure out, why is my 13-year-old, why does he hate me? Yep. Why don't I not know how to interact with him? You don't know anything about your kid.
Yeah. Right.
It'd be interesting to see, and I hope that one day we can have guests on board that have struggled with this as families, where it's almost like, is it too late? And I think you had mentioned that off the air, when is it too late if that's ever a thing? And I think it can be. You only have so many years. And I think the number was 13 years, right? So you have 13 years with your kid to make sure you did everything you could as a parent to instill those beliefs, give them some sort of structure. And then once that's it, they have to kind of build on that and create their life, right? So if you lost those 13 years, right? You were pacifying them with that iPad and then that transition to a phone and so on. When you sit down and you say, hey, what does my kid really like? Right. What gets them thinking? What is their favorite thing to do? And you don't know what those things are. I think that's a problem. And then how do you expect now to connect with your kid as they start going into these milestones that involve them leaving the house?
Yeah.
They're going to go out, go to college and stuff. It's a stranger. You're living with complete and total strangers because you rely on social media to raise your kids.
Right.
And it's not your input anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of parents don't know where they went wrong, right? They think they're doing what's best for their kids, or, you know, giving them everything they want. And then when they're 13, 14 years old, they go, wow, I have a monster in my house. Like, she doesn't listen to me. She's running away.
Right. That's
She's
a big
using
one.
drugs. Like, I try to talk to her, and she threatens to hit me. Like, where did I go wrong?
Meeting
And
random
I
people
think social
and
media is probably
strangers.
the last subject.
Yeah.
Social media is the last thing
That they think, yeah.
Yeah, they're probably not thinking about it because, you know, on one foot, it's kind of serving them. If they, you know, and you got to give parents credit, right? Like, times have changed a lot. Both parents usually now are in the workforce.
Right.
They got to take care of the house. They got run errands. They're tired. They're both working. It wasn't like that before. You know, World War One, it was the man going off to work. Woman stayed home. She raised the kids. She nurtured them. Things have changed a lot. Both parents on the workforce. It's a lot. They come home. They're tired. You know, if they want to go out to dinner and have some peace and quiet, they might put an iPad in front of their kid and have a conversation because they know that the iPad is going to keep their kid calm and distracted. But again, it's a trade-off, and it's kind of hard, you know, to just completely blame parents, because I can understand them on one end, but on the other end, it's that it's going to have some really negative consequences in the future. And we have to be thinking about the future, right?
Yeah, finding other ways. So let's say that, like you mentioned, the government intervenes, right? So what does that look like? That we're going to put certain limits, like they do in China, to the TikTok and to the Instagrams and to Facebooks and so on, where either it's basically just instructive, educational content. They're only swiping through math. They're only swiping through cartoons that are appropriate for their age. But I don't see that happening, because now you're forcing creators to do that. It's just too complicated. So is it something that we're going to turn this into a real educational platform, which I don't see that happening? Or is it really, hey, this is probably a good cutoff because we've had research show this damaged kids permanently.
Right. I mean, TikTok, now, if you go on TikTok, what are you going to see? What are the top videos on TikTok, right? In the US?
Girls dancing.
Girls dancing.
Well, not just any dance.
And
too.
a lot of them are minors, right?
Yeah.
They're like 14, 13
Dress
years old, 12 years
provocatively,
old.
twerking.
Dressed provocatively, dancing, twerking.
Right.
This is horrible.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we were talking about this
Yeah.
off the air. Like, I don't know who the number one is on TikTok now, but I know a year ago it was some sisters called D'Amelio or something like that. And that's exactly what they were. They were underage girls dancing in bikinis. And, you know, they had millions and millions of followers, to the point where now they have a reality show. It's like, why is there such a market for that? You know, why is that the number one person on this platform? What are they providing? You know?
Right.
Yeah, and the people who understand that, of what this, like I said, platform provides, what is that service? CEOs, owners of these companies, do they know the damage that this does? And how do they feel about exposing their families to that? That's something that I'm curious about. If you guys have any more insight on that.
I mean, I think the TikTok CEOs know. I think that they definitely know that this is bad for the rest of the world. That's why their version is not that it's limited, it's that it's filtered. They're filtering the material. They know if they put some type of limit on it, that, you know, people are just going to click, bypass the limit, and just keep, because it's an addiction.
Right.
But they're definitely filtering the material that we're consuming. And I did hear, I don't know if it was a week or two ago, the TikTok CEO, he actually he was interviewed and asked if his kids use TikTok, and his answer was no. And we know that, I don't remember the age of the kids. We have a clip of it, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Could you play it real quick?
Sure.
So you have two kids.
I do.
Do they use TikTok?
No, they're too young for that.
So what ages are they?
8 and 6.
Okay.
TikTok is, here in the US, if you're below 13, you get a very restricted version of TikTok. And in many other countries around the world, we don't allow users who are below 13.
I guess the question is, I know that you said it's a legal requirement that kids under 13 have to have a different app, effectively.
Yes.
But I guess the question is, do they have to have an app at all? Could you limit it so that the kids couldn't have access to it? Is that something you'd ever think about?
The last time I checked, no. The answer is no. Like, as in terms of the legal requirement doesn't allow me to do this. But I can get back to you on this.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get back to it.
This sounds convincing.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Anything you have to put kind of like an age limit on
That
is
is-
probably
that's-
something that just shouldn't happen.
That's so scary. That is so scary.
That is scary. And then how many of those kids that are logging in themselves, like I mentioned earlier, creating their own accounts, are gonna say that question's gonna come up like, "Are you 13?" Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Are
no,
you
I'm
13?
totally fucking 12.
I'm 48.
You know, let me cancel this.
What are you?
Mom, can I do this? No.
You could be. You could be 40.
They're gonna be
put
8.
their 30,
Pretend you're a
yeah.
freaking
Yeah,
kid.
they're gonna be the same ages as his kids. They're gonna be 8. They're gonna be 6. And I'm like, yes, I'm 30. You know, let's do it. Let's rock and roll. Give me the full version of TikTok.
Right.
Right. And he knows that. He absolutely knows that.
That is terrifying. And like I said, to all the listeners out there, whether you're mom, dad, single mom, or, single dad, anything, even if you're 15 and you happen to run into this podcast, we just want to create awareness. I think that's the biggest thing here. Just whatever you take from this, just be a little more self-aware, and just monitor your social media. And if you can't, we're not telling you to just quit it cold turkey, because that's almost impossible to do, right? But little by little, just make adjustments to your life so that you can little by little progressively start seeing the bigger picture. What really matters is there's life outside that screen. It's a beautiful world out there.
I want to say one more thing about that video. He said that in the United States, if you're under 13, you get a watered down,
different
version of TikTok. But he also said that if you're under 13 in other countries, you're not allowed to use it at all.
Right.
So why do we get to give our kids TikTok, but other countries don't?
Right.
That's just something to think about, obviously.
Yeah, that's food for thought. Like, what is it about us and our population that they're okay
They're like,
giving us that
That's a-
poisonous, version,
That's
but
a
other
problem.
places, no way we'll expose our people to this. So thank you guys for listening to our first episode of the QSM Quit Social Media podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the QSM podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, tune in next time and share with others. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit our website, quitsocialmedia.com, for more exclusive content. Until next time, remember to unplug and reconnect.